point of balance, allow your body, your temple, the vehicle, to become relaxed and at peace. And as the body becomes relaxed, the mind is alert and awake as it begins to float within to the center of your devotion. Allow your consciousness to let go and move within to the center of your devotion, to that light that is within. And as the consciousness comes to rest at the center of our devotion, let us for a moment focus our consciousness, our love, and our joy onto Mother Teresa. Who most of you may know is very ill, and yet I'm quite sure very joyful. Let us focus on her and make our energy, that light energy within us, available for her in any way that she may choose to use it this day. As we're focused on this light within, let us perhaps discover that this light is the real us. We are the light of the world. That is our purpose, and that is our function. To express our light through these physical temples. So from this point of balance, the center of devotion, allow this light that is you to begin to fill, touch, and bring aliveness and joy to every cell in your body. Maybe starting with the bottom of your feet. Without moving from the center of balance or devotion, begin to fill your vehicle, your temple, every cell with light and joy, until there is literally a smile on the bottom of your feet. Every cell starts to burst with life, expansiveness, and joy as you fill the temple, moving up your legs with light and joy. Always coming from the center within, the point of balance within. Allow this light and this joy and this centeredness to fill the temple, up the legs, maybe out at the end of your fingertips now. Feel the life, the joy moving through every cell, through the bones, until your fingers and your hands and your arms begin to smile with this joy. Now filling the abdomen, coming on up, filling the entire temple. Every cell, every organ comes alive, smiles. Feel it moving up around the heart. Feel that energy on the heart level. As joy within you leaps at the presence of living love. Allow this energy to come on up over the shoulders and up into your neck and moving on up into your head, your face. Feel what it feels like when your teeth smile. because they're overwhelmed with joy. Right out to the roots of your hair and out to the tip of your hair until your entire temple is smiling at the awareness of the light that is within. And without moving from this center of balance, this center of devotion, start to allow this light, this you, to begin to extend out into the room. Begin to consciously bring yourself back into the room. Until this joy that has brought a smile to every cell brings a twinkle in your eyes, puts a huge smile on your face. And you feel as if you can't contain the joy. You start to overflow with the light that is within you, the joy and the love. Bring this centeredness fully back into the room. Bring yourself fully back into the body and into the room. And as you come back into the room, reach out and share with somebody on either side of you very gently your love and your joy. Touch the person next to you with joy. And know that we can live our entire life from this center of balance and of devotion. And now allow yourself to start to be filled with a sense of excitement and expectancy. Allow it to well up inside of you in this room, for we have a special opportunity today. We have an opportunity to listen and share with Paul Solomon, who is the founder of the Fellowship of the Inner Light, and who has devoted his life to helping all of us and all humanity on the planet become aware that there is an inner light, it has a consciousness, and how to communicate with that consciousness. So we have a special opportunity today where Paul will share with us more about inner light consciousness. So with the excitement and the expectancy, let's welcome Paul Solomon.
With you after so long a time. I think I should have stood up and introduced myself when the rest of you did. I've been here so long. I want to thank Susan for that song this morning, and I also want to say thanks to Chris for singing a very special song for me the last time I didn't make it here. Thank you. I heard a lot about it. It was great. It's always good to hear some good news in the newspapers and the television, and it's not often enough that we get to hear that kind of news. But I'm really encouraged about a lot of things that are happening in the world right now. It encourages me to know that in spite of all of our concerns about the environment, the good news is that the news is now talking about it. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
You know, it's getting out there. It's not just the psychics and the weirdos talking about it anymore. It's mainstream now. I think that means that the consciousness of the planet is raised a little bit, that we are becoming concerned, and that we're taking steps to make a difference. I'm also pretty thrilled about what's going on in Poland. what's happening in East Germany, Hungary, and Germany, and a lot of other things. There's a lot of good news right now, and that's kind of unusual. We're in a period, I think a very important period of the life of our planet, when we're seeing transitions in entire governments. And it's an exciting time to be alive, and it's a time that we should feel like planetary citizens, that we should care about what's going on in the world, and that we should have some response. And also, I think it might be a time to congratulate ourselves. The meditation and the prayer that we have done, the communication that we've done, the concern that we have voiced, has borne fruit. It's important sometimes for us to know that prayer is not just an exercise in futility that we engage in when we're uptight or scared or don't know what else to do. We need to think of prayer as a technique that actually works, and of meditation as something that actually makes a difference. When we practice our meditations and feel as if the experience is just one that is isolated, just us, ourselves, one person alone. It is a very individual experience, a very personal experience. But as we begin to learn that when we use our meditation effectively, it can literally change the consciousness of the planet. Now, when we start getting evidence of that, let's not discount it. Let's give ourselves a little bit of credit for what's happening on the planet right now. Is that all right with you? Pat yourself on the back. I want to thank you for including Mother Teresa in your meditation this morning. I'm not sure that she would want any of us to pray that she will get well and go back to work in Calcutta. But at the same time, Mother Teresa wanted to work every day that she could for as long as she could. She was not in a real hurry to leave the body, as far as I knew. And I think anyone who has touched her and has been close to her will realize that she'll never really be gone. She certainly won't for me. Once you've touched her hand, as Mark and I did, I can still feel it. It's really an experience that I'll always carry with me. And so my wish, my visualization for her is that she be in perfect peace about the way that she's going to experience her healing. Sometimes ultimate healing is released from the physical body. If it's that, bless her. And if God chooses to make her 25 years younger and send her back into the streets of Calcutta, that will make me happy too. I was in India a couple of years ago when I encountered a psychiatrist whom you've probably heard of, maybe read about. Her name is Jean Shinoda Bolen. Have you heard of her? Is the name familiar? She wrote Goddess in Every Woman. When Jean was speaking at the leadership conference at Mount Abu in India, she reported on some experiments that I hadn't heard of before, didn't know about, but it was one of the most thrilling experiences of my life to hear another speaker talking about what she was talking about, because all of us, and I include in all of us, all the people in New Age movement, Theosophy, and the personal mystery phase. We've talked of something that we call an inner self or a higher self. And you may have a different expression for that. Maybe for you it's Christ in you. But we've all visualized and talked about and known of the presence of something that is within us that we can be aware of and communicate with, and which some of us call the inner light. We call it inner light because it casts light on our lives, on what's coming up, on what to do. It gives guidance. Now, whether you think of it as the Christ, or as the higher self, the inner self, or the inner light, there is a presence that is not different from who you are. It's not somebody else, and yet it is not the everyday me. Now, that's always been very difficult to explain. It's been a hard concept to get across to people, but let me tell you what Jean was sharing with us from the experiences that the experiments that she was talking about. It comes from psychiatrists who were working with people with multiple personalities. You've heard of those. These are people who have 3, 4, 5, up to a dozen distinct personalities which take over the body and express through it. And when the body changes from one personality to the other, the facial expressions may change, the voice may change. It's incredible to see what appears to be two different human beings in the same body. Very often, these beings in the same body do not know of the existence of one another. You know, there may be 3 personalities in a body, and 1 or 2 of those may not know of the existence of any of the others. I'm sure it's kind of a hellish thing to live through, to have these distinct personalities expressing through you. The thing that really fascinated me was that the psychiatrists have discovered that one personality in a body may be diabetic and another is not. Did that get your attention? It got mine because I was diagnosed diabetic just a few months before she told us this, and I wondered which one of my personalities I need to get rid of. But that was an interesting experience too, because I had just gone on insulin. I had become, as they say, insulin dependent. And I was traveling with Mark Davidson, who's here this morning. We were going into India, and my bags were stolen in the airport in Germany, which meant I had no insulin. I had no blood glucose tester to see if I was high or low or whatever, and all of the other medications that go with it. Everything was sort of wiped out. So I had to be well on this trip. There wasn't much chance of getting it in India. We did try, but it didn't work. They had pork insulin, and I didn't feel good about that. But I did feel, I knew, it wasn't just that I felt, I knew that I wouldn't have to have insulin while I was there doing what I was doing on that trip. It is as if something alive in me gave me the word, said, you're okay. Now, maybe I should be okay all the time and never have to use it again. By the way, I'm not insulin dependent now. And I don't know whether I will be, it doesn't bother me. But I do know that I've had this experience of being told that I am insulin dependent, and then having the experience of knowing I don't have to be. I can take care of this for this period of time. But it's not just a matter of mental conditioning. It's not just a matter of being brave enough to do it. It is a matter of getting in contact with the part of self that knows how to handle these things. The part of self that is called the higher self, or the inner self, or Christ in me. I need to know how to talk to that. If there is such a presence in me that knows what I need to know to be healed, I need to know how to talk to that presence. That's one challenge. Maybe a greater challenge than that is learning how to shut up and listen after you talk to that being within you. Now, those are the 2 challenges of inner life consciousness. It's not enough just to know that that power is there. It is there. I declare that it's there in every one of you, even if you don't know it. That's my belief. I can't prove it. But here's what went on in further experiments with these people with multiple personality disorders. They began to find, as they explored the personalities, and they tried to round out each one, make it complete with its history, notice that these personalities may be a different age, some young, some old, some children in adults, some adults in children. And they can be both male and female in the same body. The personalities are that distinctly different. They have different medical histories, different diseases. A disease that is active in one personality is in remission in another personality. Not just diabetes, but other diseases as well. Things such as cancer are arrested or in remission while one personality is dominant. Now, as they began to look for a way to integrate these personalities, they discovered something that is entirely new to psychiatry or to medical history. What they discovered was something that they didn't have a name for, but it was another personality. They discovered an extra personality in every one of these people. Then they discovered that this extra personality is also present in apparently healthy, normal people. They began to tabulate what they could learn about this extra personality. What it was really was a reluctant personality to manifest itself. The other personalities were aggressive sometimes. They wanted to get out, they wanted to express. But they discovered this one personality that is always quiet. It never comes out unless it's asked to. Now that's something that you want to get a feel for. It never appears, it never volunteers unless it's asked to, or unless there is a life-threatening situation. In any one of those, either one of those conditions, it might pop up or pop out. The psychiatrists chose to call this being the inner self-helper. Isn't that interesting? The inner self-helper. And they found that as they questioned this inner self-helper personality, they asked, what are you for? What are you like? What are you? And they even asked, are you God? What do you suppose the answer was to that? Anyone care to guess? Or do you already know? In fact, it said yes. This inner self-helper said, I am the place of God in you, but I am not God, as you would think of the creator of the universe. The God in you, or the Christ in you, or a being that is totally without anger, without malice, even toward the other personalities in that body that might be destructive to it. The inner self-helper was found to be non-judgmental. It was never aggressive, never insisted on taking control. It never got rid of the other personalities. What it did, as they learned how to work with it, was they introduced the personalities to one another until they began to merge and become integrated. So this inner self-helper was an integrator, an apparently universal personality that is within each one of us and can be called on. I don't think you have to have multiple personalities to go on a search for the inner self-helper. I think that what psychiatry discovered in these experiments is the same thing that we've all been looking for, talking about, and trying to share with one another, perhaps for centuries. The higher self or inner self-helper or the Christ within is the absolute center, the focus of the ancient mystery schools. It was the gift that the initiates tried to give to all of their students. Go within and find the inner self-helper. Now there are some things that can prevent you finding this inner self-helper, and there are some ways to go about it that you should know about. First of all, the inner self-helper would never agree, in any of these patients, would never agree to start the process of integration or healing unless it had the permission of every one of the resident personalities. If even one personality held out, the inner self-helper would not go to work on the situation of integration, because it had to have permission of every part of the self. That's important for us to know. I used to hear it when I was a child said by evangelists this way. They would say, you can get the Christ to come into your life and to take over, to dwell within you, if you want that more than you want anything else in the world. I think they were quite accurate in saying that. This inner self-helper seemed to have the same relationship or attitude. In other words, if you want to get in touch with the integrated part of yourself, or the integrator within you, the Christ within you, you've got to want that more than you want anything else. Now, that's not hard to do when you're in a life-threatening situation. But when you're sitting comfortably with all of the other opportunities to express yourself, it may be a little difficult to work up the energy to say, I really want to get in touch with my God self, or with living love within me. I really want to get in touch with Christ more than I want anything else in the world. It's an interesting little exercise to ask people to make a list of the things that are vitally important to you in order of importance, and to put on that list all sorts of things like your children, your family, your home, your own mind, your own health. What is it that if I were asked to release it in order to have a perfect relationship with Christ in me, what is there that I would be very reluctant to turn loose on? I'm told that the ancient teachers used to ask that question, and then when it was answered, whatever that answer was, the teacher would say, that's the first thing you must release. That's where it gets serious. If you can integrate yourself enough to know that you want this kind of perfect relationship with your source, with God in you, with Christ, then you're ready to begin your search and begin thinking about communicating, talking, saying what you need. This is a little difficult. If you had the opportunity right now to ask God a series of questions, if you were granted an audience this morning, what would you ask? It's surprising how difficult it is to come up with the questions when we face that kind of a moment. There certainly are challenges in my life, but what is it that I need to ask? If I don't think about that, I'm not likely to come up with the approach that I need to find the inner self-helper. I need to have a reason. I need to have the questions. I need to review the questions. This is one of the important things, in my opinion, of having a daily time of meditation, a daily time of spiritual attunement. Because without this scheduled time, I'm not likely to think of the things that I need to ask in order to have guidance in my daily life. Guidance should be something that's constantly there, that we're constantly aware of. Whatever we're doing through the day, whatever challenges that we have to meet during the day, we should be able to stop, be silent for a moment, ask for guidance, and receive it. But we're not likely to be there if we didn't start our day by reviewing what our questions are, what our needs are. Make the contact, become aware of the inner self. And then it's there with you for the rest of the day. It's an ongoing experience. It's not just one time a day, but there should be one scheduled time of day to make contact. And then through the day, to call upon the presence that is then there, having been recognized. Ask yourself, what do I need to know from my higher self? What do I need to know about myself and about my life? And then go looking, go asking. You don't know who you're asking or what you're asking. Make it a time of silence and see who talks. This is going to be an interesting thing, because if you've never done this before, you're going to discover that there are a few hundred voices in you. Have you noticed that? I mean, there's enough chatter going on up there to, how do I identify who the inner self-helper is? Well, there are a lot of facets of your personality that will probably pop up and say, I am, I am, I am. So that doesn't help. We still don't know exactly who it is. I want to get to the point that I can find that part of me that doesn't have antagonism for anybody else or anything else. It is the center of love in me. I need to find that part of me that has a confidence that it can heal, that it knows what it needs to know to bring healing and confidence to my life and guidance. This is perhaps the reason that it has been easy to take a personality from history and refer either to Jesus Christ or the Buddha or somebody else, and to say what you need in order to have God in you alive is to accept Christ. That sort of gives us a historical figure. We know something about him. We know about the birth in the manger. We know about the crucifixion and so on. This gives us a kind of a form. I'll take him and put him in charge of my life. That's fine if you want to use that quality of shorthand, I think is what it is. What we really need to know is what made him the Christ, or what in us is worthy of being the Christ. The part that I want to find is not necessarily a historical figure. It is definitely as available to Jews or Islam or to Buddhists as it is to Christians. And I think that's the most important thing for me to know. I don't have a problem with Christianity except when they say that Hindus are going to hell. Yeah. Interestingly, people in every faith, every religion, every culture have found God and become enlightened. And those who become enlightened find God within them. And almost always, with very few exceptions, they speak of a contact with an eternal being, somebody within me that has a specific nature, and we can know that nature. The nature is love. We need to know something about love and enlightenment. We need to know something about peace. We need to know something about what that presence does to people who discover it, because they also have qualities that are interesting. They tend to lose their desire to compete with others, to force, to push, to have war, to sue, to manipulate for power, and all of these things that seem to be common among us, that are the source of the problems. If we can search for living love and find the integrator personality within ourselves, then we will have found something that the ancients have always taught us is there. There is an inner self-helper. And that now psychiatry is also discovering is really there, discovering it from a different route. That excites me very much. When we come from two different directions, when we come from religion and come from psychiatry and meet at a common point and say, yes, there is something inherently in there, in every individual, that if it is found, if it is tapped, has special qualities of integrating the individual, of bringing healing, of bringing love, of redeeming the personality, of bringing its qualities. All of its qualities are godlike, and they bring those qualities to the personality of the person who has requested. And remember, it doesn't come automatically. You must request. You must ask for it. Ask living love within you. Participate in my personality. Remake it. Make me of your nature. Let our natures integrate so that I am like you are. In fact, what I've just said there is basically from the Gospel of John. It says, we have a light in us. And when that light is lit, people don't see us anymore. They see the light. They see God in us. When you're full of God, it shines through you, and you and God look similar because God is shining out from you as if you were a light. This, in my opinion, is what we're looking for, this inner self-helper. Now, there are many techniques for going about making this integration. Most any good meditation technique will work then let me tell you what I mean by that. There are lots of meditation techniques, and a lot of people saying, don't use this, use that, don't use visualization, don't use a mantra, don't, all these things. If you like to run, run. When you have run as far as you can run and completely feel winded, run just a little bit more and you'll go into meditation. Now that's how simple it can be. That's a good meditation technique if you like to run. If you prefer the use of a mantra or a sound, use that. If you can use visualization to get to an inner reality, use that. The point is, you want to become passive, receptive, able to listen. And in your meditation technique, ask for an awareness of the inner self-helper. Go and look, seek him, find him, her, and let her express through you. Let yourself be integrated. And then make that a practice of every day. When you get up, speak to your inner self-helper. It's not somebody else. You will be talking to yourself, but I promise you, you're already doing that. You know, you sit there and go back and forth on two sides of your mind all the time. You know, one side is that one that calls you stupid when you stumble. You've done that, haven't you? And the other side makes excuses. So you're already talking to yourself. It's all right to talk to the inner self-helper and to have a running conversation. Once a day, stop and talk to God in you or the inner self-helper. Choose the phrase or the label that you like the best. I don't think you need to be stuck with any of them. This is where religions come from. I like my word better than his word, so I adopt this expression. Call it what you will. It doesn't have an ego problem. So speak to the inner self at least once a day, just to become conscious of it and to make sure that you have asked for its participation in your life. And then as you go through the day, when you need help, say help. And know that you're talking to that same inner self-helper, to God in you, to Christ in you, to the integrator of your personality in your life. That is basically what inner light consciousness is about. But the rest of it is techniques and practice. So come Friday night if you want, and we'll talk about how to do it in very practical terms. But I've already given away the secret. All you need to know is what I've just told you. The rest is practice. I hope this helps. I hope it helps to make God, Christ, the inner self more practical and more available to you. Believe me, if you can make this point of contact and maintain it, it'll make a difference in your life. Thank you.